Hi, welcome to Sumery P. Today I'm sharing how to make a soft pita bread, no oven, but with spelt flour and a little bit of oat flour. I had a request from one of my viewers, T. Hi T, thank you for this challenge. So if you'd like to see how I make my soft pita bread, no oven, but with spelt flour, come with me and let's see. Everything's set up here ready to go. So I'm going to do two different types of flour. I've got whole grain spelt flour, white spelt flour, and a little bit of oat flour. And I've got sugar, dried instant yeast, which is the quick yeast, and some salt and a little bit of olive oil. So first step is we want to just add half a teaspoon of sugar and 2 teaspoons of our yeast. So that's about 7 grams. Just move those out of the way so you can see what I'm doing. I'm just going to stir those just so the instant yeast dissolves. Now if you're using an instant yeast that's not the fast, quick dried yeast, you'll need to let this sit for 10 minutes until it activates and gets bubbly. But if not, just let it dissolve and then you can throw it in straight away. You just need to check your packet instructions to see what it says. So I've got 65 grams of oat flour. I just grabbed my porridge oats and I whizzed them up in my NutriBullet to grind them. I haven't experimented using more oat flour. I just wanted to use a little bit. So that's 3/4 of a cup. And we've got about just under 1 cup of whole grain spelt and 1 cup of white spelt flour. So that's 130 grams of each. So in total, there's 360 grams of flour, and you can mix and match your own combination. And I'd like to put a little bit of salt in there. So just 1 teaspoon of salt. Just mix that so all the flours are combined. So because my yeast doesn't need to activate, I'm just going to start pouring that in. And I've got, 250 mils of warm water. We're going to add 2 tablespoons of olive oil. And the olive oil is one of the secret ingredients that keeps the bread lovely and soft. It's a bit tricky when you baking bread with spelt flour, because there's so many different varieties all over the world. So you just need to experiment with your combination and whether you're going to use all white flour or whole grain. When you're working with whole grain flour, it's always a little bit denser and it's a bit trickier to get it soft and malleable. And we need to allow that to mix for about 5 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes. We don't want to overmix spelt flour. If you overmix it, it tends to break the structure down and you get a tough bread. Something that I've been learning as I've been making bread with spelt flour. I'm just going to put my timer on for 5 minutes. My flour is being stubborn on the side. I think this bowl is a little bit too large, so I'm just going to help combine that. I wanted to use my big glass bowl so you could see what's happening. So our 5-minute timer has just gone off and our dough's looking lovely and stretchy. And you might find that it looks a bit sticky, but it's fine. Just leave it at this stage. What I'll do is, you can either use flour, but I like using olive oil. So just put a little bit of olive oil. And if you're somewhere and you don't have olive oil, or you don't have olive oil in your house, you can use vegetable oil or sunflower oil. A dough scraper, and just get it out of the bowl. So you can be tempted to add a little bit of flour at this stage. So we could add flour to our bowl. Just grab that a little bit down the bottom. But what I like to do is add a bit of olive oil because it creates more moisture into the dough, and then we can add more flour later. So I'm just going to pop that sticky dough back in the bowl. I've got a little bit of spelt flour in this bowl, so I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit on top, just a tiny bit. And then I'm going to grab a tea towel. I'm just going to add a little bit of water to it and wash my hands, and then we need to cover it and let it rest for usually about an hour or an hour and a half if it's in winter. But we're in summer here in London and it's super hot this week, so it may only take 45 minutes. I just need to let it double in size. So I'll pop a timer on for 45 minutes and check it. So I'll cover that with the damp cloth. That helps keep all the moisture in the dough and creates a nice humid kind of environment. Set the timer. I've just checked on our dough and look at that, it's quite large. So I think that's ready. It's definitely doubled in size. So I've got a floured breadboard here, so I'm just going to scoop it out of the bowl and place it on the floured breadboard. So I've just used a little bit of the white spelt flour on my breadboard here. We can do it directly onto the bench. I just find it easier to clean up using the breadboard. I've got a little container of flour. I'm just going to flour my hands and pop some flour on the dough. Because our dough is quite wet, it can take a little bit of extra flour. So I'm just going to scoop it up. So we need to divide this into, depending on how large you want them, I might do it into 10 pieces because I find if they're smaller, it's easier to cook them. Maybe 8. I've just cut that into 8 then. And they don't need to be perfect. And all I do is I just roll them into a ball. This is super soft, which is great. You can tell how great your dough is by how it feels. And I just roll them like I'm doing my dough balls for pizza. Just stretch it and bring it back into itself. And if you find that the dough is too sticky and you can't actually touch it, just add more flour to your hands. Then just roll it into a ball. And then I've got a little baking tray here. Whoops, just move that oil out of the way. I've just got some flour on the baking tray, so I'm just going to put my balls there. So I continue just knocking some of that air out by stretching it and pulling it back into the center. And then if it gets too sticky, I just add some flour. And then the ball kind of gets tight in itself. Just roll it. And if you're not perfect at this method, it doesn't really matter because we need to let it rest and then we flatten them with the rolling pin anyway. Tray's all done. I'm going to sit this for 30 minutes, about 20 to 30 minutes. As I said, it's super warm here today. I'm just going to cover them with this damp cloth and we'll wait till they rise. In the meantime, I'm going to start heating up my pan behind me so it's super hot and then we'll start cooking. So it's time to start getting our soft pita bread ready for cooking. So I'm just going to remove my cloth. I like to reuse the dough scraper and I scoop it up, or some flour or oil on my hands. Scoop the dough up. I'm going to put flour on both sides, knock some of the air out. Let's get it back into a ball before we roll it. That might help. Flour our rolling pin. Squish it down. Oh, that's so much better, Sue. Knock the air out. And make sure it's just even all around. Brush it with some oil. Get it into this pan. Bit of oil. I'm going to bring you closer so you can have a look close up. Better flip this over before it burns. One man camera girl, it's really hard to do everything at once. Okay, let's get some more flour on our little breadboard here on bench top. Knock some of that air out. Brush it with oil. Lovely zebra-y kind of pattern. Pop it under our cloths. This one's ready to pop in. Brush this with oil. I'm running out of oil, Sue. I love the dough so great. You can just flip it up, throw it back together, nice and bubbly. Pop it under our cloth. I've finished cooking, I've caught my breath, I've cooled down slightly, I've got rid of all the smoke in my kitchen and I've got all of the bread under here. So I'll just unwrap and show you. And some of them are different shapes and sizes. That one's super thin and not perfect, but these ones, these all look pretty good. And we'll probably have them for dinner tonight with a salad. So I'll just show you a bit closer. I'm going to keep them wrapped up until dinner time. So these ones look pretty good. They're all quite lovely and soft. These freeze really well, so if we don't eat them all tonight, I wait until they're totally cool, wrap them in some plastic, pop them in a freezer bag, and then they last in the freezer for, I don't know, we never have them more than a few weeks, but they'll probably last for up to a month. And I just defrost them in the toaster and retoast them, have them for breakfast or lunch. So they're delicious. Let's do a taste test. So this is my one that doesn't look as good as it should, but the bread's lovely and soft. That's delicious. The texture's so good. Even though I've used oat flour and a little bit of whole grain spelt flour and white spelt flour, they're lovely and soft. So tea, give this a go. Super soft. Just remember to keep them covered while they're warm. And look, wraps up really well. Maybe don't do it on a hot day like I just did. Let me know in the comments below. Give it a go and let me know if you love it and how it turns out for you. Have a play with the different blends of spelt flour versus oat flour. And I'll pop a few links up above for a few other ideas for spelt bread making. And thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.